Welcome to Hebereke to any percent. With some of the stuff that's come to the run lately, I do want to actually come through and make some commentary for this. With the run starting from the title screen, we go ahead and collect these 6 coins at the start, and then we meet the antagonist of the story, an alien named Utsujin, who has crashed in the earth and wants to spread these little like pink, purplish blob things. And we meet our character here, Hebe, who realizes that his little blobs that he has called the Pop-ons, or Pop-oons, something like that, his actually destroy those blobs that Utsujin has. And after discovering it, then Utsujin decides that he's going to start trying to spread them before we can actually destroy them, while also trying to develop better ones. So going into this first level here, Euphoria Fields, you're going to notice that I'm going to pick up every single coin, as well as completing the challenge that's listed in the top right. Every time you go into a level, there's going to be a challenge, and if you can complete the challenge, you get a reward. So in this case, defeating one blob gives us 10 coins, so we'll defeat this blob here, and then continue to pick up every coin, as well as killing this one enemy. And the reason why we're going to pick up every single coin will be explained once I get to there. And then when we reach the end of the level here, we get a vending machine that can be used to refill our life if we've taken damage. And then this door here, we get a little explanation about how this means there's a boss fight coming up. And then Hebe hears his friend O-chan, who is on the other side of the door screaming for help. And then here we find that she's covered in those same blobs that Utsujin had earlier. Here, what we're going to have to do is we're going to clear the blobs off of her and then calm her down. Now going into this fight, I do actually want to explain something that's going to happen after this, since doing the boss fights themselves are pretty simple. After you beat a boss in this game, your character will do a little celebration dance. I found that this can actually be skipped if you tab out of the game and tab back in really quickly. It'll actually just completely skip the cutscene. And you can tell this works because the boss clear music, or like the celebration music, is still playing in the background. So I wanted to specifically explain that because to people who might just watch that, it does kind of look suspicious, but it is a glitch just by clicking out of the game or tabbing out. So I wanted to specifically explain that. That's one of the main reasons. This can be done for several cutscenes, every celebration cutscene, and then here as we're leaving and we've helped O-chan, we meet a friend of ours who offers the service to fly us back to our house. We will use this a couple times throughout the run, but not every time we want to return home are we going to use them to fly us back. And there's a reason for that I'll explain a little bit down the road. But as we escape here, we get a little bonus, and this is where picking up every single coin comes into handy. When we return back to Hebe's house, we're going to have exactly 200 coins. And this is important because once we get past this little cutscene, we're going to meet with O-chan, who has found Hebe's vending machine here and found that it's not functioning and she wants to fix it. Once she fixes it, she finds that there's actually an item in it that she really wants, and that she will only help us if we buy it for her. And the item is a fancy mic, and once we buy it for her for 50 coins, then we want to immediately buy the crawl ability for 150 coins. The reason we want to do this is there are some items that we will need that I'll explain going into this next level. The crawl gives us access to the potential to find some of them really early. And again, we'll go into that a little bit more. But here when we buy her the fancy mic, she spends some time singing, and then we're trying to get her to just focus on what we're trying to do. And then once this cutscene is over, we do learn of her ability. Every character, every one of your friends in this game has their own ability, and O-chan's ability is she can actually swim, where Hebe cannot, despite being a penguin. So now we buy the crawl, and we get a little cutscene explaining what that does, and it's pretty simple. It allows every single character to crawl and get into tight spaces, and this will come in handy a couple times throughout the run. Once the cutscene's over, we immediately tag to O-chan, and we just use her for the rest of this. We'll go over to the right side of the screen this time, and we'll be met with this little pond, and this is why we need her, just to get over this. And then we enter the first level, or the second level rather, and we get introduced to a mechanic where our friends will sometimes offer some assistance. So by pressing the top face button there, they will chime in and give us something. It can be either money or health. And there we can see at the top there what's called an Utsukan, which is a collectible we need alongside the coins. The Utsukans are what unlock stuff in the vending machine for us to purchase, and the coins are what we use to purchase said items. By the end of the run, we need 27 cans in total, and I think it's roughly 1,600 coins. So right now I couldn't grab that one because it requires an item I do not have, so we will return later for that if we're lucky. Now we're going into another boss fight that's basically the same as the Ochan fight, so I'm going to explain a little bit more while this fight's happening. Basically, the levels in this game are sort of in a roguelike fashion. The levels are randomly generated through a set series of levels, and everything's completely random. There are some specific layouts made that the game will cycle through when you visit them. So it seems that the first time you go through the levels, they are mostly all the same. However, repeat visits, the layout you get is dependent on a number of factors, specifically what items you possess. So that level right there contained an item we could not get. If we come back with the item we need, it should be more likely to appear. So now that we're on to the next level, we do want to get every single one of these treasure chests we run across, just because they drop a bunch of coins. And in there, that one actually dropped a silver coin, which is worth 10 gold. We're just going to continue to collect every single coin we can, kill everything. The challenge here is to kill 4 enemies, so we're going to just try and do that as well as we go. And then, I didn't mention it earlier, but when you defeat most bosses in this game, they give you an Utsu-can as well. So the boss we just defeated gave us a can, and there's our second can. You can see in the top left, they mention that we have another can. So here we go into a boss fight with another one of our friends. This guy, his ability is that he can glide. He's a ghost and can just hover, and we can use him to fly over longer gaps. He is not the greatest. He's with the fact that he flies, he's very floaty and very difficult to control, and so a lot of his usefulness is he's not very useful. So we free him, and then we explain what's going on, and we wish to have him assist us. And then now that we're done with this fight, we're going to leave and go back home, and we're going to do the same method we did before. We're going to have our bird friend fly us home. And the reason why we're doing this again, even though I mentioned earlier it's not going to be every case, when you use your friend here to fly home, you get bonus coins. If you pause the game and opt to return home through the pause menu, you do not get these bonuses. So early on, we want to do it through levels that we end up getting one of our friends, because these levels take us longer, and the longer the longer chain of levels you go through, the more of a bonus you're going to get from the end there. So basically, we're using that way to return home to get bonus coins to make sure we can afford things, and then when we don't need to, we can pause the game and opt to return home through the pause menu. And here, the challenge is to clear a blob. We can do that pretty easily, and then we're going to go ahead and grab another one of these Utsu cans. In an ideal world, we want to always end up with a layout where we can get at least 1 can per level visit. This is a way to just make sure that we can actually afford things as we go forward. Right now that we saved our previous friend, we can technically go assist him. Every character we're going to get, and there's only going to be one more, they request us to buy something for them. In this case, he wants us to buy him some green tea. Unfortunately, we can't buy it right now because it requires 7 cans to be able to appear in the shop. So we need to visit some levels and get some more cans. That way we can actually have it available in the vending machine to purchase, which is fine because we also need more cans. So we're going to go past the very first level, and then down here we can drop into another level, and we're going to make use of Ochan's second ability, which is she does not get affected by ice physics. So she can walk perfectly fine on ice and not be affected by it. We're just going to use that to go through this level, pick up some more coins. We want to, again, grab as much as we can because the missions are all randomly selected, and there are some missions that are significantly better than others. There's a mission that will reward us with 300 coins if we can complete it. In an ideal world, we want to get that as many times as possible, but it is random. So unfortunately, we just want to clear every mission we can to maximize how many coins we end up with in case we don't get lucky and don't ever get that mission. And it's just more navigating through the levels and trying to get as many coins and as many cans as we can. And this one, we didn't clear the mission, but that's fine. It's not too big of a deal. We go into the fight. And again, a lot of the boss fights are very similar. We just throw our little pop-ons onto them and then ground pound them. And then we do the same sort of cutscene skip that I mentioned at the beginning of the run, where we can skip the little celebration dance. This guy was giving me some jukes, but now he's down. This cutscene skip can only be done the second your character starts dancing. And the level we just cleared is technically optional. It's not actually a level you're made to go through. And so the reward for finishing this level is actually just a special technique for one of the characters. Each character has a little special move that they can do at the cost of 1 life point. However, the reason we went here is simply for the cans. So again, we use our bird friend to fly us home. Because we went through multiple levels, we get the bonus coins for having gone farther, and we want to make use of that. And now here we get to the cutscene where we explain how he wants to join us, and he will assist us only if we buy him the green tea. Again, we don't actually have the amount of coins or the amount of cans we need for it to appear in the shop, so instead I'm going to be making some other purchases. I'm going to be buying this little spring pad here, which when we ground pound onto it, it sends us flying into the air, which is very useful for several cans. And then we're going to buy the minecart, which is going to speed up the next level significantly. The next level is going to be going through a volcano, but if you buy the minecart, you can just use the minecart to fly through the level instead. So it is very useful, a little spendy, but if you have the coins to do it, you absolutely want to, because it's going to be the biggest time saver at the early game. And then we're going to go back through here, and at the top right you can see that mission. That is to kill a golden bird for 300 coins. We want that mission to appear as many times as possible. Because of how many coins we need to spend throughout the entirety of the run, for every single one of these, it is a massive time saver. So if we can get as many of these as possible, it saves us a lot on having to farm coins and waste time opening more treasure chests and levels. So to get that here pretty early is really good. So we're revisiting these levels because now that we have some more items, we can actually grab some of the cans that we missed earlier. So we have this one as well. And we're still going to continue to collect as many coins as possible because we still are pretty early, and only getting one of those gold bird missions still makes it dicey for whether or not we're going to have the amount we need. So we want to just work under the assumption that we need to collect as much as possible. And the challenge at the top right is to just avoid taking damage as many times as you can. So in this case, if we can avoid getting hit one more time, we get 20 coins. And then once we reach the end here, I'm actually going to pause and use the pause menu to return home, because all we're looking for are cans, so we just need to return home once we get everything we need. Then we can drop back down here and we can buy the green tea. And then what I'm going to do is buy a map here and a compass. And the reason why we need those is they will open up an ability for us later after we buy more and get more cans. But it's also because it creates a sort of pseudo shortcut for us after this cutscene. We have a cutscene here where we meet our new friend, and he explains what he's doing, what he's useful for, and then explains basically a tutorial on how you can immediately know what he's useful for. That gap can only be cleared by him, and that'll give us access to another level. But because I bought the map, it's actually going to teleport us up here to show us this cutscene of Hebe putting up the map, and then another cutscene explaining what the compass does. And the compass is actually to show us how many cans we still need per level, but the usefulness is that it actually puts us all the way at the top of his tree, which then allows us to use our new friend to jump over this gap immediately. This next level we're going to go into, we only are going to be in for a slight amount of time, because the only thing we need from this level is just a singular can, which we can get very lucky and the can will spawn low to the level, like lower down the level, or very unlucky and the can is pretty high up. This is another one of those levels that's not required. Being this level just unlocks one of the character's abilities, so we don't actually finish the level, we just want to go up here and get one can and then leave. And you can see his floatiness makes it a little bit difficult, but the way to work around that is to just ground pound whenever you're over what you want to get. We grab the one can and then immediately leave. And now we're going to go pick up our next friend. Every time we pass over that bird, he's going to try and drop something on us, so we have to always avoid that. And now we get our second golden bird mission. So this run is already off to a pretty good start, making it easier for us to get as much money. However, this layout for this level makes it very tricky, because if you do not get him right there, you actually can't go back and get him. So the fact that he was in a certain cycle that made it to where I couldn't actually hit him, I unfortunately cannot get those coins. There is a way to get that to make it easier for a different time, because there is an ability you can unlock that'll make it easier to retry that. But at our current status with the amount of abilities we have, we actually can't do that if we don't hit them initially. We fly over the lava, and then we get access to the volcano. And this is where the minecart comes in handy. As you can probably imagine, walking through this isn't the funnest thing and the fastest thing, so having the money to buy the minecart early makes this a whole lot faster. And we can just use the minecart, and we're just going to grab a bunch of coins, and then there's a couple cans. And because I crashed, I'm actually going to use one of our friends to fly over and pick up the can instead. So unfortunately, this run does have some walking through this level, which is not great, but it is, if you're able to hold the minecart the entire way through, then it is significantly faster. Thankfully, the minecart refreshes after a little bit, so you don't have to walk out the rest of the level with it. It does just show up again. And then now, we never want to use him for a boss fight, just because of how floaty he is. And now we meet our final friend, Jennifer, who is right now just upset that somebody trashed his room. So now we have to calm him down, and then we can get out of here and use their abilities as well. So now we're just going to calm them down. I do take a hit there, unfortunately. And again, just like every other boss fight, we need to use a Papoon to get rid of the little blobs, and then land on their head. And then the cutscene skip, and now we're figuring out what's going on and explaining our situation again to them to help convince them to come help us. And now, again, because we've traveled across multiple levels, we want to use our bird friend to fly home so we can get the bonus coins. And then now, here we meet Jennifer at the vending machine, and Jennifer explains that they aren't feeling the greatest and found that our vending machine actually has some medicine that they would appreciate it if we bought it for them. So now we go in and we can buy some medicine, and that way we can unlock Jennifer. Jennifer's ability is they can actually dive into water. So while Ochan can swim, Jennifer can dive. And there's actually another trick that we can use with Jennifer to actually sort of down warp through water. This is actually found by someone called Greenalink. If you throw a Papoon as you dive into water, you actually you pretty much down warp through the water. So I'll demonstrate that right here. We'll use it a couple times at this part. So we down warp and suddenly we're at the bottom. And there are 2 cans here in Hebe's house that only Jennifer can get. So we're going to use this down warping to swim, to down warp through this water. It only works if there's a really far body of water. You get the most value out of it. However, every character can do the same sort of down warp through the water, but only Jennifer really benefits from it because they are the only ones that can actually dive. Every other character, you can use this same sort of down warp, but they will eventually they'll just immediately float all the way back up. And then there's another mechanic that's sort of similar to that doesn't get used at this spot, but will get used shortly. And that is, Jennifer also has a similar thing where if you throw a Papoon while in the water and hold a direction, if you hold the direction you throw it, they gain a speed boost as well. So you can use this same sort of technique that you used for the down warp, but instead of holding down, you hold a left or right direction as you throw, and you actually will get a speed boost into that direction. These are definitely like unintended mechanics of how this functions, so it is still a glitch, but it is very useful for various areas like that. Now that we return here, we can get a can that's available right here, and we get another gold bird mission. So this run got pretty lucky when it came to these missions. So that's 3 of them so far, though I've only been able to actually get the first one, unable to get the second one. But here, to spoil it, we will get this third one. So this one's a lot easier to hit. Any enemy in the game can actually be stunned with a Papoon, and then once stunned, they actually sort of become like invisible, and so you can phase through them, and it makes it easier to hit them. We're not going to waste any time breaking any of those blobs. We just want to move past them. And then now that we have Jennifer, we can actually access an area down here. Greenalink, the same person who found the down warp, found that there's actually an invisible wall preventing you from entering this level if you don't have Jennifer. And now while we're in here, the whole area the gimmick is that it's dark and filled with water, and so you're supposed to use Jennifer. That way you can light the way and then swim and dive through the water. And then again, we're going to just grab as many coins as we can, use the same sort of down warp through any sort of long body of water. And then we'll see here in a little bit the trick of gaining speed by throwing it. So it's not very easy to tell, but the swimming by throwing it is faster than just normally swimming, because Jennifer admittedly doesn't swim very fast. So throwing the Papoon and then getting a speed boost off of that is still faster than his default swimming speed. Unfortunately there, I meant to hit that enemy, not walk into him. And then here we enter the next boss fight. This boss fight's actually underwater, and so this is a boss fight that only Jennifer can do. There is actually a way to skip the cutscene trigger for this boss. I found that if you just swim into this boss fight and hug the ceiling of the cave, you can actually skip the trigger. However, it does nothing, because even though the boss is right there, the left side of the screen, you can't actually hurt them before the boss fight actually begins. So it's completely pointless. But because of it being underwater and the boss itself moves pretty slow, the fight is actually pretty quick. And that's it. And now, once we finish this, we find out that Utsujin is talking about trying to go to the highest point on Earth, which just so happens to be above Hebe's house. But as we stand, we currently can't actually get up there, so we need to collect more cans before we can purchase an item that'll give us access up there. So this is another point where we want to try and just farm some cans. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy this item, the crystal ball, and what this does is this now, after buying the map, the compass, and the crystal ball here, this will give us access to challenge rooms. At the end of every level, there'll be a little challenge room where we can pay coins to participate in a challenge, and if we can clear the challenge, we're rewarded with a can. Now here the characters to figure out what they're going to do, only to realize that the highest point is surely above Hebe's house. And then they discuss how they're going to get up there, and they realize that if they had some sort of suction cups, they could climb the tree. And then this guy, who's been the one who's been refilling the vending machines for us, explains that he actually does sell a way for us to get up there if we want to check it out. Unfortunately, we need 20 cans to be able to buy it, and we currently only have 16. So we need to make some revisits, and now that we have the crystal ball, we can do the challenge rooms. So even if we go through a level where it does not end up in a layout that gives us a can, we can still do a challenge room to get a can. So we're just going to backtrack once more. And because I recognize this layout, I'm going to switch, because there's a can we can get for a long jump here. And again, if we hit an enemy with a Papoon, they become invisible, basically, so we can just jump over that guy. So now we're at 17 cans out of the 20 we'll need. And then once we pass this screen, we will get access to the first challenge room we can do thanks to this guy. We can go in here, pay 20 coins to participate in the challenge, and it's just to grab that star and bring it back. These are very fast ways of getting cans. However, they can't be like too easily farmed because certain levels only have a certain amount of cans available to them. So some levels you can do multiple challenge rooms to get cans. Some levels only do one, and then the reward becomes just coins. So there we can get the first can that we need. And then now here, there's a can accessible only to Jennifer by diving and then using the crawl. And that puts us up to 19 cans, which makes it to where this challenge room we have at the end of this level will put us up to the 20 we need. However, when we return to this level, there's going to be a cutscene. When you return to areas that you fought your friends at, there's a little cutscene where they just talk about what they were doing here. So we have this little cutscene where he just explains what he was doing here. And then he invites Hebe to play him in shogi. And we're just going to go through, and we're going to take on the challenge. You didn't spend 20 coins, and this one is just to kill every enemy. So we'll hit the frog, stun him so we can ground pound him, and that's that challenge down. And then we can just pause and return home from here. Now that we have the 20 cans, we can go and buy in the vending machine, it shows a plunger. However, the characters referred to it as suction cups. So it looks like a plunger. They just referred to it as suction cups. So now that we have it, Hebe actually unlocks his ability to climb trees, or climb walls, rather. In the original game, Hebe's abilities were that he moved faster than everyone else and could climb walls. In this, all of the characters move at the same speed and just have one special ability to them. So in this case, instead of moving faster and can climb, Hebe just has climbing. That's it. Now we're in Horizon Tree, which is the longest level in the game and is also sort of arbitrarily made annoying. The whole point is to climb up the tree, which you would think would be a lot easier now that Hebe can actually climb walls. However, they thought of this, and so the level is filled with enemies preventing you from climbing up certain walls. So some of these walls will just have enemies that are there in place to make it to where you can't just cheese it by climbing up everything. However, we do get to actually work around that with a little skip that I found later in this level, thanks to the fact that hitting an enemy with a Papoon, actually, like mentioned several times before in this run, it makes them invisible and we can just go through them. There's going to be a point where we can hit one of these guys and then just climb up the tree past him and skip a whole section of the level. But otherwise, a lot of the level is unfortunately waiting on these cycles. So right here, we're going to make this little skip here. So we can hit this guy up to the top, and then we can climb up him. And this skip's having to do a whole nother one of those like timed platform sections on the left-hand side there. So it saves a good bit of time. And just thankfully that guy is just barely within reach of that. And again, it's just more climbing all the way up, waiting and hoping on good cycles with these platforms. And thankfully we made it to the end. The boss fight here at the end of the tree is trickier than most of the boss fights because he actually has 2 phases. So we'll hit this guy twice. And then we enter the second phase where it becomes just his head that is flying. Now this is a bit of a risky one to do. If you want to do fast, you can hit him and then jump into him and ground pound while he's in the air. However, the hitbox for it is seems kind of wacky, and so it's actually pretty easy to hit yourself on him rather than just hitting him. We do another cutscene skip, and then we go over here, and we find Utsujin hiding at the top. And now he explains that he plans to go hide in, he plans to return to space and prepare his next step. And unfortunately, we don't have a way of chasing him into space. But he does explain that he left some rocket parts here on Earth. And so now, after we clear this level, it becomes our plan to go and collect all the pieces to the rocket that he left behind. But to be able to we're going to start by doing this challenge room. And this one's pretty simple. We just got to get this star to the exit. We can do that just by flying over this guy, and that's it. So these next couple levels are going to be secret areas from previously accessible levels. And these levels all hold a special challenge that if you complete the challenge, your reward is the rocket piece. So the first two are always going to be accessible. The second two that we need are only going to be accessible either through luck by randomly getting the level layout that has the path to the secret level, or by buying an item called the treasure map. The treasure map is only accessible if you have 27 cans, and then you have to buy it for 500 coins. In a previous run of mine, I got incredibly lucky and actually got both the other two secret levels completely without the treasure map. Just randomly got both of them first try, which will save more time than spending that time getting the cans and the money to buy the treasure map. However, it is, again, completely up to luck. I messed with it and I tested stuff for a couple hours, and yeah, it's completely random. It is one of those weird things that, unlike other layouts in levels, it is not affected by what you just purchased. So it's just luck of the draw if you get any of those. So it is actually more beneficial to spend the time to get the treasure map than it is to just risk a run 35 minutes in, seeing if you get lucky or not. So we're going to revisit through this level. This time, once we reach the end, we're going to find a mysterious little enemy, and that will give us the boost we need up to the new secret level. And then here's just a little cutscene where we learn that all of these birds are technically different. Doesn't really mean anything, but it's just a cutscene we have to see. And then we'll do another one of these challenge rooms, because again, we need to make sure we can get to 27 cans. And now here we get to see our path to the secret level. So this is one of Utsujin's drones that's here to just throw a bunch of these blobs around. Now that he's up in space, he sent these down to just try and flood Earth with them. But we can jump on them and find the secret path. So now this is an extra level where it exists purely to get us to the rocket parts. So the challenge for this level, you can see the reward is a piece to the rocket. And you can't really tell because it's in Japanese, but it says damageless. So we have to avoid taking any damage if we want to get the rocket part. Which may seem pretty easy because for the most part I've done this run without really taking damage. But once you get to the end of the level, then there are like spears randomly falling from the sky. And these things fall randomly and can just snipe you out of the air. So we're going to see them here. Yep. So, well, I guess they're harpoons, but basically harpoons are just falling from the sky, and you have to avoid getting hit from them. They are pretty much the only challenge. Thankfully, only 2 of the rocket parts require us to be damageless. So, the unfortunate part is if you fail the mission, so if I were to take damage at any point in that, you cannot retry a level with the challenge. You have to back all the way out to Hebe's house and walk all the way back to retry it. There's no way to retry from the level itself. So if you have a run where, like that, I got it first try, and then you get a run where you fail it, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a better pace. It's a one and done thing where the trek all the way back costs way too much time for it to be worth it. So now we're going to trek all the way back to this direction, because now once we get towards the volcano again, we're going to find the next secret level. And this one is also a damage list challenge. So if we can clear this next one, damage list, we get another rocket part. This one, we can get a little trolled here. We're going to stop and get another can. This one's just collecting all these stars. This next little drone, it can find its way in. It can throw these blobs over the little gap that we need to fly across and can basically snipe us out of the air if we're unlucky. So like right there, he's throwing it into the lava. Depending on our timing, we could get sniped out of the air and fall into the lava, and the lava is an instant death. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we'll just clear the gap and then switch back over to Ochan. And then we get access to this next secret level. And again, damage list for a rocket part. These levels do actually contain cans as well, so if we're low, we can actually spend some time to collect cans that are in these areas. But these ones, because they require damage lists, I do play them a little bit safer, just because I don't want to risk having to, well, basically forfeit the entire run. This is also one where it's a lot easier to get trolled by these harpoons, because the cave ceiling there makes it hard to see when they're going to spawn. So it's very easy to get hit by them in this level. So now that we've got that, we end up with 27 cans, and we can return back to Hebe's house. Now that we have the 27 cans and all the money we need, we can buy the treasure map, which guarantees that the next 2 secret levels are going to be accessible to us. And that's it. We don't need any more coins, we don't need any more cans, we now have everything we need to finish the game. So now these next 2 levels we're going to go to, we are guaranteed to find the secret path to the next levels. And these next 2 levels, their challenge isn't damage list, just beat it under a time limit. And it's another reason why having the minecart is easy, or makes it easy, is because one of these levels requires us to go through the volcano again. But if you have the minecart, then it's really easy to get through it in the time limit. If you don't have the minecart, it is very, very tricky to get through it in the time limit. So we once again have to backtrack. And this time, instead of going to the right, once we reach the end, we're actually going to go back into the cave that we needed Jennifer to access earlier. We can save a little bit of time there by using Hebe to climb up that wall. Unluckily get hit there. And then once we get past this challenge room that's coming up, we'll actually see that it will no longer offer a can. It'll actually just offer coins as the reward. And that's because we've gotten all the cans we can from the challenges. And now we drop in here. We find another one of those drones dropping blobs. And again, now this one and the next one, if you don't have the treasure map, them appearing is completely random. So the treasure map guarantees that they will be accessible to you. I do unfortunately get hit here, and so I drop down, but thankfully this rope is still accessible, so we can just jump back up. But again, without the treasure map, these appearing is completely random, so while they could be faster, it's also riskier to basically risk your entire run on whether or not you get lucky. So here we have 1.5 minutes to reach the end of the level, which is pretty simple to do when we have the minecart. And this level again does have some cans we can collect, but we don't need any more, so there's no point in bothering going for them. And then once we reach the end of the minecart part, we want to switch to Hebe so we can actually climb up some of these walls. And we get the next rocket piece. So now with the third piece, we return back, and now we're going to go to the left side again. And we're going to go into the little like frozen cave area that I went pretty early into the run. This is the only time one of these like extra levels is actually required for you to know where it is and get into. Every other one of these, it's been a mandatory level that they've been set with. But this is the only like extra level that the main path takes you through. But again, as I mentioned earlier, clearing the level is entirely optional because all it gives you is one of your character's special abilities available for purchase from the vending machine. And unfortunately, while some of the abilities, especially Jennifer's, does unlock a lot of cans in some levels, it is still not worth buying and spending all of that time just to get it, because we also can't specifically buy Jennifer's. We have to buy other people's abilities before we can buy Jennifer's. So it just costs more coins and isn't worth it in the end. So there's the final path. So we're going to use Ochan, who can walk on ice without physics, and then we're going to use Hebe to climb up some of these walls. And we gotta wait, because we're just going to bonk our head. We try and take that jump. And then now we can get here. And again, this one, it just requires us to beat us under a time limit, which is a lot easier on this path than it is in the volcano. This one doesn't require anything. You just go to the left. Thankfully, when we don't have to worry about being damageless, these harpoons that are falling from the sky don't really they aren't imposing. We can also save a bit of time by using Hebe to climb up this instead of waiting for that rope. And that's it. Now we have all the rocket pieces, so we can return and figure out what to do with the rocket. So we'll drop down. And here in this cutscene, they figure that they can use all the rocket pieces to chase after Utsujin, but they want to get someplace where they know that they can, they don't have to worry about the shape of the rocket, like how good it is. So we have to climb back up to the top of the horizon tree in order to build the rocket and chase after him. There is a way to avoid having to replay levels like this. However, it requires more cans and more coins. There is a sort of side quest you can do where you can buy, you can get a mission from the little bird we've been using to return home. If we go through some levels, we can actually, at those vending machines, buy their children, like their little eggs. And then once we buy the egg at the vending machine for the level, we can actually fast travel to that vending machine. However, like other things in this, it unfortunately costs too much and takes too much time to do. And we actually can't get it all in time before doing Horizon Tree the first time. So while it would save time not having to replay through this entire level, you would have to spend more time gathering cans and coins before even going to the Horizon Tree the first time to be able to actually save the time here. In a good run, the Horizon Tree takes about a minute or so, and so it would basically mean that all the extra cans and coins you have to collect would have to be done faster than 1 minute for it to actually have any value. And unfortunately, I just don't think that that's feasible. So while it could save time, it also has the same amount of potential to waste time. So instead, we just gotta do this, and we can do that same trick that I mentioned earlier. We can hit that guy and then just climb up the tree to avoid the whole right-hand side. And now that we're at the top of the tree, now we're going to go ahead and build the rocket so we can chase them out into space. So it's just a little cutscene of them trying to figure out how they're actually going to build a rocket, since none of them actually know what they're doing. And they just talk about how they're just going to try it and wing it. And they manage to somehow succeed despite not knowing how rockets are built. And then there's a little joke about Hebe finding a loose screw on the ground. And now we use the rocket to jump into space. And there's this little, it'll take us into another level that is very similar to, Doodle Jump, where you just have to use the rocket to jump onto platforms. This section goes by incredibly fast if you just go to the right side. So if we just hold the right side, we can get to the top very quickly. So it's just jumping on platforms and jumping on clouds. We didn't go over it because we skipped the level that these are relevant in, but the clouds, once you land on them, the cloud will go away, and then you have to wait for the platform to come back. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that because we can just jump past them all, and that's that whole level. It takes a bit more time if you take the left-hand side because there's more objects you'll have to jump over, and the paths, like the little platforms, are a little bit more spread out, so just holding right essentially is the fastest way. And now we're here up on Utsujin's ship, where we're going to challenge him to the final fight. They basically just explain like what they're going to do, how they intend to beat him, and then we go and just walk into the fight. Now, contrary to how every other boss fight in this game has been, Utsujin here is not affected by the pop wounds. Instead, we only ground pound him. So here he explains that he found a way to beat our stuff, and that is to basically just become his blobs. And so now he is immune to them entirely, and so we have to find another way to hurt him, but of course the only other way we have to hurt things is to ground pound. So we just ground pound him, and that's all it takes. With perfect timing, you can actually basically stun lock him. I mess it up there. You can do the same thing, so we basically destroy a ship, and then he's on foot. We can stun lock him here as well. With well-timed bounces onto him, we can make it to where he just doesn't move. And that's that. The run is done, and that would be time. 46:06 here, and that's Hebereke 2. The run overall is really fun, really unique, and very interesting with the roguelike aspects, and requires a lot of like out-of-the-box thinking and rerouting when you come to like how many cans you need, how many coins you need. So it's been a very fun game to do. But yeah, that's right now, that is currently how the run plays out. And at the ending here, we just use our Papoons to create a black hole to send Utsujin away. And then there's this little like slight reference here. The black hole is actually also going to suck up Hebe. So we'll see that here in a second. He's actually going to end up in the black hole as well. And then there's actually a little reference here that this might be actually a prequel to the first game rather than a sequel to it. As once we skip the credits here, it shows Hebe in the starting area of the first game. And that's it.